There
Okay,
you go.
now it's coming in.
Sorry, we'll have to just backtrack a little bit. We had a little technical glitch there. So introduce yourself again. Sorry. We are talking with Victoria Ichizli-Bartels
Yes,
from
Ichizli-Bartels.
Denmark, right?
Yes.
From Denmark. And we're going to be talking about your newest book, which is Be Your Best Game Master. But now we're talking to you about you. You're going to tell us a little background about you, which you just did, but we didn't have it on video. Sorry.
Yes, no problem. Yes, my name is Victoria, and I am originally from Moldova. I grew up in Moldova, and I'm German citizen. I lived 12 years in Germany, met my husband there. We moved to Denmark, and now we have two children and live in Aalborg, northern Denmark. And my background is semiconductor physics and electrical sciences or technology, and I have a PhD in this area. But at some point, I changed into technical publications, and I was an avid reader, was interested in reading a lot, and at some point, I wondered if I could be writing as well. And so I researched, learned about writing craft, publishing craft, and but I thought I couldn't write books because it was for me like too much. So I
Mm.
started blogging, but at some point there was a book that kind of came back again and again to my mind, and it was the book about my father. And actually, I think you read it and also reviewed it. It's The Truth
Is
About
that the one
Family.
called The Truth About Family?
Yes, that's the one. Yes.
Yeah, I
So
really enjoyed that story.
thank you very much. Yes,
Yeah.
that was the first book. But at some point, and I wrote several books in fiction, but at some point, I kind of actually, this book was the first one that I turned into games. It was inspired by my writing teacher. We were all complaining that we cannot make progress. And she said, let's play a game, write a little bit every day, and then report to each other. And it was brilliant and kind of went at some point I forgot it was a game. I was just writing every day a little bit, and some friends asked me how do I do different things that I manage, and I formulated the game for them and named it 5 Minute Perseverance Game and published a book. And then somebody heard about the book and said, oh, it's gamification. I was wondering, like, gamey what? So I started researching, and at some point I applied it to myself, and or self 5 Minute Perseverance Game was already applying to myself and to what I wanted to do. So I thought, okay, it's self-help plus gamification, so self-gamification, and yeah, I was the first to use this term, so that was really
So
surprising to me.
that's where gamification, the term, was actually born. It was there.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And since recently I think it's self-gamification is a process, because gamification also, the ending of the word gamification, shen, is TION. It often like motion. It all often applies to a process. So gamification is a process to turning something in what feels and like a game. This is
Mm.
my personal opinion. And self-gamification, like turning everything that doesn't feel like a game into that feels like a game. But the thing of being aware what games bring into our life, I started calling it gameful mindfulness, and since recently, and also found that seems to be I'm one of the first. When I Googled, my articles then come up, so it's very interesting, and also surprising, I would say, that this is not more used, because games are
Mm.
everywhere, and also gamification has been talked about for years, and also alternative reality games, and there are many acclaimed books on that. So I'm still surprised that we separate so much, our real life from games, and so.
It's interesting because gamification is generally associated with video games or something like that, right? Like,
Not necessarily. It's also used for learning, for
okay.
raising awareness, or for trying to modify behaviors. For example, to help or to motivate someone to buy something, for example, loyalty programs, or to complete your profile on LinkedIn, for example, there is a progress bar. It's all elements, or you have the stars for the, for the reviews. It's all game elements, but used, in real
Mm.
life, or like the countdowns, like
Oh, yeah, that's
the
right.
timers and so on.
On sales or whatever.
Yes, yes, exactly. And actually, we've been using gamification everywhere. And recently, by one of the gamification authors, I heard the idea that like soccer, is or football we call in Europe. It's actually gamified running. So you run, you do some other things. So I find that it's very nice idea. Yeah,
So essentially, when we look up a gamification, gamification, or what's the other term you said?
gameful mindfulness.
Gameful mindedness on Wikipedia, it's going to be attributed to you someday when they track it down and go,
I don't know, maybe,
who
but it's still.
started this?
Yeah, it's still relatively new, even if I turn, well, my first book, game, 5 Minute Perseverance Game, it's actually came out 10 years ago. It was
Hmm.
2016. So it's kind of a
Well,
small
you've published a
anniversary.
lot of books since then. I was looking up your bibliography. It's quite extensive.
Yes, I have over 20, like 25, 20, 26 around books in English, and some also in other languages. And on
It's a,
this topic, on self-gamification, already 14. And uh, and that's quite interesting because I tried different genre. I also write in technical area, and I also tried fiction, and I tried, for
mm.
example, to write a parable. But somehow this topic with books, it just seems to be endless with games. I mean, gamification, and it's just amazing. And any time I go deeper, and I write now 3 books on self-gamification, it's like it's endless. It's more and more to research, to learn, to express, to experience. So it's really
Well,
great.
but what for you though was maybe you already said this or alluded to it, but what inspires this passion for like writing about self-gamification? Is it because you personally have experienced so much good from it, or you've observed it working so well with other people? I mean, what keeps this thing fueled? Because 14 books on one subject, that's pretty impressive.
Yes, thank you. Well, it's mainly because I experience and it helps me a lot. So it's
Mm,
all started with yeah, self-help basically. And for example, I started a series. Some books were inspired to write for someone else. Like
mm,
somebody recommended me to write gameful project management, and I found it a great idea, and I did that. But some are really personal. For example, I have some health issues, and I was thinking if my children are going maybe to deal with some of them when they are a bit older, and I got them also with my in my 40s, 30s, 40s. So I thought, yeah, to write something for them. And I wrote Gameful Healing, how I kind of helped with game approach to
mm,
deal with all that. So and or when the COVID hit, my editor and also cover designer, she said, "Why don't you write a blog post, Gameful Isolation?" And but I love writing books, so I wrote a little book. So this kind of happened, once.
mm,
And the latest book, the one you mentioned, actually, I thought I would be writing for other people. I was thinking about self-leadership, self-coaching, self-parenting, and I thought of all those. I even titled it that way, of all those, things that how we cope, or how we talk with ourselves, how we communicate with ourselves.
mm.
But then it's actually surprised me. This book, every book actually changed me in a way. You probably know it yourself. When you write something as a writer, it
Right,
changes you.
right.
You grow with it. But that one, it was like a big change. I rewrote it 4 times, and almost completely, and it was surprising the whole way. And I noticed a change in myself, how I
Mm,
talk to myself, how I communicate. So I also researched. I read different books on role-playing games and also how they function, and that was really inspiring and surprising. So it was great.
I thought that was an interesting concept. We're going to get into that book in a bit because I have some points to take up with you that I thought were very interesting when I read the book. We're talking about Be Your Best Game Master at this point.
Mm.
But before we get into that, I was curious because having read, I read The Truth About Family. I also read A Spy's Daughter.
Yes.
Both books I thought were really, really good and really interesting because they're based on actual events, actual truth of what
Yes.
happened with your family.
Yes.
And okay, we don't have to get into that right now in terms of the details, but I'm curious, did your family background, I mean, very interesting background with your mom and stuff like that, did this influence your writing or how you this has evolved with Gameful, the whole Gameful series, gamification series?
Thank you very much for this question. Yes, if I think back, yes, absolutely. My father, he died unfortunately when I was small, 10 years old. He was very humorous. He loved humor. He also he was an orphan of the Second World War, so his life was not easy. But there is a lot of there was a lot of humor in him, and I remember that myself, but also my mother and my sister, who my sister is 8 years older than me, so she remembers him much more than I did. So they carried this humor, and we still say his phrases up to today. So what he said,
Wow.
and I translate this to my children. So and also, my husband's family is extremely humorous and absolutely great. We try to go to Germany as much as we can, which even if distance is big. But I think humor is really what contributes very much. And also, not only from background, but also learning from my children. For example, my son plays Dungeons and Dragons, and all three in my family, my husband and our two children, they are avid gamers. So I learn a lot from them and ask about their games, even if I don't play video games. Also because of my eye condition, but I love reading. So it's kind of goes both ways. I get inspired from my background, but also from those I
Yeah,
communicate
because
with.
I think the whole point about gamification, when I read it, I see, yeah, I don't see necessarily the humor aspect, but what I see is a very positive approach to life. Like that's because basically that's one of the strongest messages that come through on the gamification series is a positive view on life, look at it as a game, play it as a game,
Yes.
not taking it seriously, but and I think that's really a cool message because I think I'm being an author and also an activist in the human rights area. You see people taking life very seriously, but
Yes.
it is a game. We have to keep that in mind.
Yes, and I think yeah, humor has this playfulness in it, and games.
Uh,
Sometimes when we play games, we can be very serious and even maybe use strong words and so on. But
mm,
we are, as you say, we are not that serious, or maybe that we are not dramatic. So we
uh,
do take what we do seriously. So we are excellent in games, but we are not. We don't put drama that we put in real life games. So and that's I think a difference, and there is still kind of reluctance towards games. So especially when you go to businesses and talk to them, or then they are kind of afraid of games. Like, no, we have serious matters to discuss here, not games, But actually, in games, you are more resourceful because you are not afraid to take some risks. You are not afraid to try something new. You forget you have often in games this famous concept of a beginner's mind.
mm,
And in real life, we kind of have all these worries. We carry all our load with us of the past, and always kind of have prejudices and kind of all thoughts that we had from the past and worries. But in games, we leave it behind. We read the game rules. We're like, oh, okay, let's try it out. So we are completely open, if we decide to we really engage, because some games that we reject, we actually stop playing them. We then actually treat them like a chore or something
Mm,
serious.
mm.
So if we engage as in a game and really as something favorite or interesting game, we are curious, we are open. So this is what I try kind of to bring into my games every day. So into my real life, like approaching for example, getting enough sleep. I notice how reluctant I am to, to go to bed in time and so on. And I had a lot.
Interesting.
Oh, and that's very interesting. That's actually my epic game because my brain always find reasons why not to go to sleep on time. But I have to wake up at some point. So there is like I'm designing and redesigning and changing the rules so I to keep myself engaged and actually to get enough sleep.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
You made a point there. You mentioned this thing about that businesses tend to resist the idea of games, but it's. I just want to analyze that a little bit. Why would they? Would they? Is it because they feel that that would challenge or their platforms or how they think it should be done, or and that it wouldn't that the people wouldn't take their business seriously if they were like presenting that perspective to the employees, or what do you think?
I think there are a couple of reasons. One is the ancient one from Aesop, the saying that the games is not serious. You have to work hard to achieve something and to really be successful. But actually, there have been a lot of not only studies but also many people can see that those who have success they have fun. Actually, fun is prerequisite to be successful.
Mm,
But I think another reason is this tiredness of hearing about games and gamifications,
mm,
because a lot of people come with gamification and they misunderstand what gamification is. Many think it's just take a game element, put some badges, some stars, some points, and that's it. It works in the first, at the beginning, it works a little bit. But
mm,
then you need to do something else. You need to, and actually, I had my own experience, and I described it in one of my books when my son was a bit smaller in zeros or the first grade. He had an assignment from school to calculate, math plus minus and different things. But the result he had to color it, and he didn't want to do that. So to motivate him, I said, okay, let's do self-gamification. And I said, okay, give yourself points for every colored area in your on your page. It worked a little bit. He said, "Oh, I want to put my point will be a check mark. I don't want it to be just a tally. I want it to be a check mark." I said, "Fine, here, no problem. Here's the notebook. Use it and do it." He did a couple of those things, and then it became boring. And this is the thing: that if it we try when we gamify something, we think, okay, one recipe, it will work. No, as soon as you learn everything about it, it becomes boring.
mm.
And I learned it from Ralph Costa. He wrote a book called Fun as Fun, the Theory of Fun for Game Design. And it's really great. He says the destiny of games is to become boring, not to be fun, because fun is a process. And that was really interesting. So as soon as it becomes boring, that's it. You leave the game. You don't want to play it anymore. But there are
Now you do
some
a new game. Yeah, then you
Yes,
do.
or there are some games, the deeper you go, the more they become interesting, like chess, for example. They become
Mm,
more complex and so on, the more you learn. So with this experience with my son, it became boring. So I said, okay, wait a second. I will take something that I think I don't want to do, sit near you and do it, and then also make my points. And let's see who will be, who will
mm.
be better. So competition, that was fun. So we sat together and he started doing again, was a bit nervous that I had a little, getting was gaining on him. Yes, it worked for a while, but then it stopped. So he didn't want to do it anymore. Okay, what else? And my husband had an idea. Let's take an abacus, with
Yeah.
and interestingly, and we had some like with children books at home. and with 10, beats to move. And it was a coincidence, very lucky, kind of serendipity was that he had exactly 10 areas to color, So he started doing it, and then I realized this abacus gave him the feeling that the goal was more visible, just 10, and he was with
Right. It
every.
was tangible. Yeah.
Yes, so this is another important thing that the goal is reachable, and this is what games always the very good game design shows you that the goal is reachable. In real life, sometimes we put like 5 years goals or 1 year goal. It's too far away, so we need to break down and to make goals more fun for ourselves.
Yeah. If
And
you put it on a practical level, like, okay, I want to be a millionaire in 5 years.
yes.
Well, maybe you got to break it down to, well, let's start with I'm going to build my bank account again to add $100 into my bank account in the next month.
Exactly. Yes.
And then,
Into
like you
small.
say, then make the next tangible target, but make it a game.
Yes, exactly. And reward yourself. And rewards don't need to be big. They can be like just notes, like I do on my notes, numbers, whatever. My rubies and diamonds just it's are equal something. That's my rewards. And it's enough because it's fun. And it's nobody it's the interesting with the thing with self-gamification is that it is kind of a circle of intrinsic motivation and extrinsic rewards. Because
Mm,
this is what many don't like about gamification, saying it's extrinsic rewards. You bring like in loyalty programs, you say, buy 9 drinks, we will give you the 10th coffee, free. And it's extrinsic. It's not, it works for a while, but then there is no inner motivation to do that unless you really
right.
like coffee. So, but when you self gamify, it's very interesting because you have a motivation. You think, okay, I want to do that. I'm not very motivated. How can I do that? How can I make it for me fun? So there is this intrinsic drive, and then you add some points or maybe change them or whatever, and so you combine it in intrinsic with extrinsic. And I think this is why this is so powerful and helpful. And actually, the fourth thing that I learned with my son in that day, it was very interesting. So that was like points, then competition, then the third was to see the goal. And the fourth was, and that was really inspiring. He inspired both of us, my husband and myself, because he then said, he finished the task and actually analyzed, and he said, you know what? I actually could have done it at school quicker. And it was, he realized, he also understood that he kind of was too spending too much time complaining. And so after that, it went really, really well. But the surprise was something else. He showed me this notebook where he was writing the check marks.
Mhm.
At the end of it, there was a page that he didn't show us and showed that only at the end. He said, this is my feedback system. And it was a house, a small house that he drawn. Like every element of the house corresponded to every area that he had to color for the school. So he invented,
Interesting.
sorry?
That's interesting. So he was building the house up as he went along.
Exactly. And that was so inspiring. So he needed to design, he needed to control, in the game by himself.
Mm,
He needed to do that. And actually, many video games, online games use it. The avatar. You build the avatar, you design, you put everything, you maybe define also,
mm.
things, or in Dungeons and Dragons and role play games anyway, you have a character sheet, you design your own character. So that's why these games are so popular, because you have influence on it. So, and
It's
that's why
interesting because
self.
then
Yeah.
it makes it tangible when you're playing the
Yes.
game that way, but also you can relate to it.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
not all just in your head where you can see, like your son's case, he said the house that he built, or in Dungeons and Dragons, or whatever the avatar that you build up, you're
Yes,
building it the way you want it to be.
exactly.
That's
And that's
interesting.
that that's what very important for, that's what also sometimes forgotten in gamification, that
Mm.
that influence. And also the problem with when some companies or some businesses try to gamify, they think more about, some real life goal, but they try to manipulate everyone, including maybe themselves, to be more productive, to work more effectively, and so on. And so they try to pull some of the game elements to do that, but that doesn't help. You need this intrinsic drive. You need to be invested. And this is why the games are so successful, because you have this willingness, to invest into it and to
Well,
do
it's
that.
interesting because, yeah, I mean, having worked with businesses too, yeah, you remind me of the fact that they tend to just monetize the game, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
And like you say, that's an extrinsic that's sort of an exterior goal, but what motivates you? I mean, oh, yeah, everybody wants to make more money, but it's sort of a dull target or goal.
Yes,
If you
exactly.
just monetize it and say, okay, if you make X amount, we'll give you a bonus. Well, okay, that's about as
Yes, and actually
simplistic.
bonuses can be very scary if they are big. That's something
Yeah.
like ominous. But if you break down, and that's why in self-gamification, so it's not only gamefulness, but I say that self-gamification consists of three parts, or you could also say, like every game has a gameplay loop. Like you do
Mm,
something, like
mm,
one of the examples I learned is like Mario, in Mario Odyssey. He goes, jumps, and or walks or whatever. So there is a combination of steps. And then self-gamification, you need to be aware. This is the first step. So you look where you are, how you feel, where you want to go, and so on. And the second step in this gameplay loop is to identify the smallest, most effortless step you can make,
mm.
because then you don't resist it.
You
And
just
then
naturally go into it. Yeah.
exactly, yes. And then the third one is to take this step in the most gameful, playful ways, and also appreciate it in that playful way. You
Mhm.
either put it in, some points or whatever. For example, in my Super Sleeper game, I have points, I have coins, I have gemstones. So I have many scores there, and I kind
Mm.
of adjust how they work so that it's fun for me. Or some games I don't record anything. I just do a little game. It's like yes or whatever, and that's it. So the feedback system you have in a game, it doesn't have to be very complex. It can be very simple.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think, like you said, that it's more of an affirmation. It gives you the win.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I'm making some points here. I'm succeeding. I'm getting ahead.
Yes.
So you end off the day feeling better about yourself and about what you're doing. That's
Yes.
very good. I remember. Okay, let's go to your book, which is Be Your Best Game Master. So it's your most recent book, right?
Yes.
Number 14 in the gamification series, basically.
Yes. It is. Yeah.
All right. Um, there's a couple of quotes which I had noted because I read the book and I did a review on it, and I just got to read these quotes. I thought they were so, true to life. In one quote, you said there can be no self-growth without the ability to love oneself.
Yes.
Love that quote. It
Thank you.
it really speaks to you because it's true. Like if you don't like yourself, you don't love yourself, then
You
there is no
cannot grow.
self-growth.
Yeah. What games taught me actually, and it started with the definition of games by Jane McGonigal, who says that every game consists of goal, rules, feedback system, and voluntary participation. And I realized, oh, everything is a game. So what actually games inspired me is to see how many parallels we have with life,
Mm,
with real life, and how
mm,
close everything is. And actually, this with self-growth and self-love, it's like it may be another parallel with plants. If you think that a plant without sun, without warmth, will never grow, and without nourishment, and it will just wither. And so the same, I think, with us. We cannot grow without providing this warmth, this, to ourselves. This, and the sun is not coming from outside. Of course, we need to be warm and fed and so on. But we need this intrinsic sun, this that we feel that we love, we are loved. But actually, if we don't accept, if we don't love ourselves, we cannot actually appreciate, the love from others.
No, it's a really good point. I mean, I think it's a powerful point because I was reading another author, not to take the spotlight off of you, but he in his books he was writing about the fact that you know, when you hit the brick wall, when you hit the wall and then you crash in life or you get depressed, something happens, it's a tragic thing, you lose somebody and you just go down. He said there's two ways you can look at it. You can kind of look at it as a tragedy, or you can just sort of own it and accept the pain, not fight it, and use the pain to grow again, but not to hate yourself because of it or to regret it, because that's sort of like putting yourself in a position where you don't love yourself anymore, or you don't love life, but life is life,
Yes, yeah.
So you got to own it. But I think it kind of fits in a way, it parallels your statement here about self-growth and love. They go hand in hand.
Yes, and actually, it's a wonderful statement from the author you mentioned, and actually, it reminds me also of a quote from a book by Nora Roberts, and she's my all-time favorite author, and I quote her a lot. And this is from her, I think, Bright Quartet. So it's 4 books, and in the first book, there was a quote saying, there are things in life that you cannot change. So they just happen and you might be upset about them. I'm just paraphrasing. I don't remember exactly how it goes. But then she says, you can make it either a tragedy or a party. So you decide what to do. Or if we talk about self-gamification, you can make it a tragedy or a game. And actually, games are more fun and more engaging. But I would say genuine games, because it also happened when you try to use, especially gamification is sometimes used for manipulation or for not very good, goals. And I think genuine games are kind, and this is the kindness behind them for growth. This is essential, and those are actually, it's for learning, for even those that actually just are created for entertainment, they already actually, we learn a lot from them. So there is a lot of kindness behind that. So
you just reminded me of something, because of course when you're talking about this positive sphere, games and stuff, you're talking about positivity and, like, obviously trying to achieve something more in life. And I was just thinking, when you talk about the power of attraction, there's so many books out there by authors about the power of attraction. If you think positive, you'll get positive, blah, 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 and all that stuff. But a lot of people don't have success even when they try it, because, okay, they say, I want to be a millionaire by next year. And then the next bill that comes in, they quit. They lose it right there because it's going the other way. But if you start thinking about, okay, if I'm going to think positive about it, now the power of attraction is going to work. Well, gamification slips right in there beautifully. It's sort of like, well, yeah, like you said, build some steps, but make it soft steps, so they eventually, oh, well, okay, maybe I can actually do this, if the power of attraction by itself, personally, I think it's a little overrated, because it's not, it's like you said at the very beginning, it's giving a too high goal.
Yes.
And most people set a too high goal for themselves, and then they fail ultimately. And then they think it doesn't work, but it actually can work if you do it the right way.
Yes, and actually, I mentioned that I love reading about games and games background, and there is Justin, I think, Justin Gary. He is one of the very known game designers, and also a champion of Magic the Gathering, and he wrote a book called Think Like Game Designer. And it's one of the books that actually are about game design and a lot of
Mm.
things. But when you learn it, when you read it, actually, it's also very like life lessons that you learn. And he says, for example, he has a company where he employs game designers, and he says he actually prefers not a brilliant game designer that creates one good, great game design, but someone who creates many bad game designs that don't work. Because in each of these bad designs, you have a lot of nice elements that you can then put together into a brilliant
Right.
game. And
And it's
and
also part of the learning curve too.
exactly, yes. And that's what we actually in real life we tend to try to find a perfect solution for something.
Mm.
Uh, Even like those interesting simple things like a to-do list app, for example. We try to find something best that it works forever. I noticed that I do that myself. And then we think, okay, now it should work, that's it. But the thing is, it's like a game. If it doesn't, if we learn everything, if it becomes too routine, we learned everything from it, then it becomes boring. We want something new.
That's right. That's
And
right.
that was quite interesting to find out that even game designers sometimes, when they turn, into real life things like they also try to find perfect solutions, but you're bound to change that solution or leave it for another to try something new. And that's why famous games, they actually, like, for example, take World of Warcraft or other like Minecraft and so
Mm.
on,
Mm.
they constantly adjust their design to keep people involved.
Right.
And I read an interesting definition of about games or thought about games by Yukai Chao. He's one of the most known in gamification. He said games are there just simply to keep people happily entertained. And I really loved this phrase, to be happily entertained.
That's a good
And
point.
yeah,
But I think what you're saying too, when you say, they're constantly adapting the games,
yes,
it, we have to realize that games have to parallel life. If life is a big game, and then the games that we play have to sort of parallel. And some of those games, well, those games have to in match the fact that we don't always win at everything we do. There are losses, and there are times when you run into a wall, and so yeah, like you say, building in the elements that show you, oh well, okay, that was just a wall. Don't worry about it. Now let's get on to the next step.
yes.
Uh,
There are games that you never win, like Tetris, you get better and better, but you never win. You
but you
you,
never get
you
to the top
always
end.
lose at the end. And that's why I really love learning from games because they are so inspiring. If we look at the puzzles, life is constantly a puzzle. Then we can learn, and that's why I also wrote "Be Your Best Game Master," is because when I started learning about role-playing games, and especially the first, so I quoted in the epigraph, I think his name is Justin Alexandra. He has written "So You Want to Be a Game Master," and so he created a book for game masters of role-playing games. And the first sentence in his book saying, "Role-playing game is a conversation," and that hit me like something, and I'm thinking, oh, that's what happens in my mind. It's a
Mhm.
conversation. Then I immediately started searching online, and I found a thought by Bruce Hood, who has written a book called The Self-Illusion. And so, in a summary about this book, I read that self is not a monologue, but it's a conversation. It's no constructed of. It's not kind of a mind in isolation. It's not something just one thing. It's a constant conversation as we interact with the life around us, and that was very interesting to me. And I was thinking, okay, if role playing games are conversations, let's see what they're made of. And I started,
But
yeah.
now just before we just so to clarify also for the viewers and for myself,
Yes,
but when you talk about role playing and a conversation, this is going on in your head, right? This is what you were talking about in Be Your Best Game Master, that you're
yes.
actually creating a role playing scenario. But how does that relate to the reality of, well, let's say you're solving a problem or dealing with some situation going on in your life? How do you adapt that to a real life scenario?
Actually,
Uh,
yeah. So I don't create a scenario. But so what happened? What I realized now, I asked also my son because of Dungeons and Dragons. So I asked them how, and also read how the game itself in role playing games occurs. So they usually don't dress up. They just come as they are. They have a sheet of paper with character, and they know some of the rules of the game. There are rule books and so on, and there is a certain person there who is not a player, but and this person is game master, and this game master plans the round, the game for the game, and creates some toys, some scenario, has a map, follows the rules of the game, but also create a game in itself. And they sit together, they have their dice, their role-playing dice, and they roll the or they talk. So the game master starts the round, says you are in front of a castle and this happens, so what do you do? And each of the players, and it's a collaborative game, and each of the players starts saying, okay, I do this, I do that, and so the game continues. And that when I learned about it, and also I learned the concept which is called active play in role-playing games, meaning you don't know how the story will unfold. So the game master knows the start of the story, but he or she doesn't know how this will, unfold.
but in your book, Be Your Best Game Master,
Yes.
you're the game master, right?
Yeah, I'm many parts. So
But
in
you're setting the roles for each of these characters in the game, right?
I actually discovered them. So in my mind's role-playing game, RPGs as I call them, I need to discover them because they are already there. They can be a teacher, a leader, a bratty child. For example, I read books about self-therapy, so we can be a therapist. I can be my own patient because when I analyze myself and so on. So there are a lot of games or roles that can appear. And I noticed that when I in conversation and when it first hit me that about the conversation, I actually was thinking, preparing myself. We all have some people in our lives that we might not have, some unresolved issues. So I had a discussion with someone prior to that. And this person was not near me when I was having this conversation in my head. And I was kind of rehearsing my conversation with that person. And suddenly it hit me, okay, I'm trying, what is happening there? And I understood that I was trying to prepare myself for the next discussion, kind of protect myself to be hurt again, which I thought as a hurt.
But when
um
you start these discussions or you're the role playing, are
yeah,
are you are you initiating it consciously or is it suddenly just happening?
some of them happen just like that, but so I don't start many of them, they just start by themselves. But this parallel to role-playing games helped me to try to search for the part in me which brings them together, because game master is actually a referee. So if there is a problem between the gamers, players, the game master is not part of them. The game master brings, kind of some order into it, some agreement into it. And that's what I started wondering, okay, what part of me, when I have this confusing thoughts, of talking to someone who is not there, but I argue with, in my head, what part of me can bring actually that peace, that
Mm,
consensus between
mm,
all parts of me. And actually I found a book by a well-known, and I mentioned her book in my book. She's a neuroscientist, Jill Bolte Taylor, and her first book was My Stroke of Insight. She had a stroke and she went through it and also through recovery and have written how that
Mhm.
happened, her experiences. And she's also known to travel with the human brain. She was allowed to do that. So she talks a lot about brain. And her second book is Whole Brain Living, and she separates our behavior or thought processes into four characters, and which each is responsible for the front, left and right, and back, left and right hemisphere.
So
And
she personified each of these parts.
exactly. She even for herself, she gave them names. For example, I think front left was Helen and so on. And they had a lot of, so they have four names. And she also described, actually based on research, described how these different parts of us think and what they say, and which are more emotional, which are more, more more maybe rational and so on, and responsible for different behaviors. And she said that there is a certain, she names a process when we kind of stop a little bit and try to be introspective. And she said 90 seconds are enough and she calls it brain huddle. I really like this expression, the huddle when the teams go together
Yeah,
and
the
talk
football
together.
team. Yeah,
Yes, so it's her approach, and I really like it. So it's like you put all your players together, and they kind of huddle together and choose the path or the way of
yeah.
action.
What's the time?
Exactly, and
It's
it's
interesting because
similar way what I think. So
what you
what
think. Yeah, I know. I get the concept.
yeah.
I mean, when I was reading the book, I was like trying to envision how would this work? Like, how would I use this in a practical sense? But as I listen to you talk about it, I see that, well, it's like a game. You just have to, you're creating these roles, but you can actually start to, uh, you animate things that enough that you can actually look at them almost. You're looking introspectively, sort of like, but into this inner world, but in a way,
Yes,
you're sort of putting it on the table so you can look at it too. You can
yes.
you can
I
deal with
Yeah, I imagine my when these conversations go, and especially if they are confusing. I mean, if I am if I am in the flow, if I'm writing or creative or reading a book or whatever,
it.
I don't worry about that. I don't think about any of this. But especially when something is confusing, when I am, you know, yeah, and when I'm down, maybe depressed. So then I start thinking, okay, what is happening inside of me? And the next question is maybe I think, okay, I am now talking to myself and rehearsing a discussion with someone. And then the next question is, who is talking? And that is really interesting. And sometimes and I had the experience just at Christmas time with family, with my husband's family and with our loved ones. And it was a beautiful, beautiful time. But at some point I felt I was anxious and I was thinking, why am I anxious? What's happening? Who is that? And then that was very interesting. So the answer was so surprising. It was someone who wants to belong but afraid not to belong. And that was like, oh my God. So when I had this answer, I started looking, okay, for the signs, if I see anything, sign of belonging. And there was so plenty. So this fear, old fear maybe of not belonging that we all have maybe in our childhood, and when we join a company or start come into a new group, or for example, I changed schools. I started my school in Algeria for 3 years, and then I came into a completely new school, into a group. So you all have this, we all have this experience of or wish to belong and are afraid not to belong. And that, when I heard this and had this answer, that was so helpful.
That's
I could
amazing.
relate. Yeah.
That you know, okay. Is it fair to say? We're getting close here to the end of this
Yes.
So I don't want to cut you off. We could go on for 2 hours here easily talking about this subject. I really enjoy it. But is
Thank
it
you.
fair to say, I mean, as an author, when I'm writing a book, I'm completely entrenched. I'm in another world. I can actually see my characters. I can feel them. I can sense what they sense. I feel the emotions they sense. And like it's like a three-dimensional stage in my head. And those characters are just, yeah. So I'm writing through their eyes. And sometimes I'm standing back as a spectator, but oftentimes is it fair to say that that's a little bit like what you're talking about when you're talking the role playing in your head? Because for me, it's a role play, and
Yes,
I
yes,
have to see it that way, or otherwise, I cannot write a book that feels authentic.
yes,
It
absolutely.
it can't just be words. It has to be three-dimensional characters in my head. Otherwise,
Yes, and actually, I sometimes imagine myself that it's kind of like a table inside me, and around them there are people sitting, and when I try to identify what kind of roles could be, I have written 12 of them, but it can be, anything. One of them is called wild card, so meaning that whatever missing is coming, and I imagine like three or four sit together, and hopefully Game Master is there because she needs to, intervene if something happens.
oh,
um,
interesting.
but the others kind of join if necessary. So that kind of my visualization of it. But often, this question, what is happening inside me? This is the first one, and the second, who is talking? And that is so revealing. It could be like, a scared child. Sometimes it's like, oh, it's someone who is really scared. And then
Mm,
when you notice that you are scared, there is this, and tell it to yourself. Nobody hears it. It's rarely that I kind of say it to anyone, but I just feel it, and it's really, really, and actually, when you notice it, it's also easier to ask someone for help.
mm.
This is the thing. Before you ask someone for help, you need to help yourself, and that's why this kind observation of our own thought processes can help.
It's interesting. I'm writing a book right now, and in my book, I one of the characters says that they're talking about lies. We're talking, there's two people, they're having a discussion about why do humans lie.
Mhm.
And as I was writing this dialogue, I was realizing, yeah, well, of course, we it's sort of one of our privileges or one of our superpowers is that we can say things or hide things and nobody can actually see them. It's in us. It's like a
Yes.
superpower, that you can conjure up anything in your head, and like you say, nobody hears it, nobody
Mhm.
knows it.
Yes.
You have another world going in there, but it could be very, like you said, it could be very cathartic because it suddenly, or where's that voice coming from, or why do I suddenly have this emotion popping up, and yeah, it has a therapeutic effect too. But it is a
Yes.
bit of a superpower when you think about it. That's kind of what you're tapping into here
Yes.
with your
Yes.
book. Yeah.
Yes, and that's why this book changed me because I started talking to myself differently, completely
Yeah.
differently. And I started actually talking more freely about being a writer and about self-gamification and like saying, okay, this actually makes sense. This is powerful.
Oh, I understand that.
I
That makes sense.
talked less before, and I see that's it, yeah, kind of, yeah, it's empowered me. That's
Well, I think, but it makes sense because you're acknowledging the fact that you have this ability to do it, that it is something you can do. And I think maybe some people or a lot of people are afraid of that. They think that the whatever, whatever misconception they put on it. But if you just treat it like a game
yes,
and you're the master of that game, well, like you said, it empowers you. It's
yes,
nothing to
and
be afraid of,
yeah,
you
and I
know?
think, and another important thing is, together with the book which came before that, is that I don't negate negative emotions.
Mm,
So, you talked about positivity. Yes, games help us to be positive, but in games we have all kinds of emotions. Also, maybe some negative. We experience something. We, as I mentioned, can use some strong words or maybe something. But the thing is, we feel safe inside games, And
Mm.
self gamification help us to feel safe inside ourselves, and inside our own skin, with all emotions, and actually not fight them, but actually see them as, as some signals, as some information, some interesting information that guides through our,
Mm.
lives
I
to
think so too.
navigate.
Yeah, I think you have to look at it because
Yeah.
that is life, like we talked about earlier. We have to
Yes,
parallel life. There is loss, there's depression, there's emotion, there's I
absolutely.
mean, that's got to be part of the game. If it's not part of the game, then you're not talking to people on the level that of living,
Exactly.
you know.
Yes.
No, but
And
this is a fascinating subject. I don't want to cut you off here, but
no, no, that's okay.
we'll come in
As
and
you
we can
said, we
talk
could,
again in the
yeah,
future because I know you're going to have more books out.
yes.
What's the next? You're going to you willing to tip us off here? What's the next book that's coming up? Or
Well, I work actually on 3 books in parallel right now.
whichever
So
one wins the race.
yeah, it's difficult. Oh, I will name them briefly. So the one is gameful journaling. So basically, I realized what I do with all those poets every day.
Mm,
It's nothing else than journaling, but it's a
mm,
gameful journaling because you also
mm.
design your day and so on. So this is one of them. And it will be structured in, 5W1H framework, like what answering the questions like who, what,
Yeah,
when, and so on. Then another one, which is structured the same way, is life gaming in discovery mode. So it actually goes further with be your best game master, but kind of what does it mean to be here and live, curiously. And there are games like Minecraft, they have discovery mode. So something like that, what does it mean to be present in gameful
right,
way? And the third one is just the collection of my games. I call it actual reality game collection. So it's like everything from my Super Sleeper game, 5 minute perseverance game, or recently I started time management doodling game that where I, write some, or I can maybe uh, just a second show you. It's small flowers like with petals. I don't know if you can see.
okay,
Yeah.
yep,
So and I divide them in different areas, what I do want to do during the day so I don't forget, because I noticed sometimes I kind of paid attention to one area, but I had some other things and my to-do lists are so big. So I started kind of splitting like writing, moving, household, some, yeah. And I started doodling. So if a petal is empty, so I need to do something, do that and do something. And it's interesting. It just brings some kind of break and the creativity. And yes, so I constantly invent something new for myself. This is very recent. It's like a couple of days old. So
I think what you're doing is great, though, Victoria. You're giving well, it's just adding some creativity to the world, and I think we need a lot more of that. You
yes,
know,
I think what is missing is really this in terms of self-care and
Mm,
there is a lot of, like we say, be self-compassionate, self-love is important and so on, but it's very it's not, there is not so much about practical self-compassion. And this is what I think about also be your game master. If I was to summarize it, it's practical self-compassion, self-love,
that's
because
right.
it tells you, how you could do it. And this is it's probably my mission to try to find out what it means to really care for ourselves and on all those during all those storms that we have in our minds and thoughts.
I think that's really valuable. I think there's another important point to say about this before we end off here, which is that it doesn't cost any money. It doesn't require anything. You can sit in an empty room on a chair and you can start to view life from a very positive perspective. And it doesn't require, well, it might require a coffee, but that's about it.
Yes, and actually, it's also one story that I mentioned in many of my books is that it can actually be very profitable.
Mm.
I once turned my own task in a project. It was a technical project, and I was complaining about doing this task. And I was thinking, okay, what's happening there? Okay, let's turn it into a game. So every paragraph I had to review and to comment. It was a technical document. I gave myself a tally. So I made this tally a point, and at some point I forgot the tally and it went. And actually, what happened is that I did it quicker. Then the project manager came, saw the tally, and said, what is this? I said, I turned it into a game. And he laughed about it. He told later to other team members, and we all laughed about it. But what happened is that we stopped complaining. First, I did it myself, and I didn't actually tell them to gamify anything. But the whole atmosphere changed because of stopping to complain about something that we needed to do. We saved time. We spent less time that we reserved, and then because it worked so well, the customer of of the client that I was working with, they were very happy with their work, so we got referrals. So we actually got more customers, and the only thing what happened, it was what changed is my attitude as a consultant and a tally with that's it. So as you said, it doesn't cost anything, but it can be really even economically better because you save time, you save nerves, you become more resourceful, and you don't need to influence anyone. It starts with yourself, and that's
No, but
amazing.
it goes back to this point you said about like, from a self-improvement perspective, you can change yourself, you can improve your life just by deciding to do it. It really
Yes,
isn't any more complex than that, and
exactly. Yes,
so all right, we're going to end off on that point because and
yes,
'cause I know we're going to be talking again in the future.
yes. I hope so.
So and I really want to thank you for being on the show, Victoria.
Thank you very much for having me.
What we'll do, as we did in the previous times, is we'll send you a copy of the video. You'll get that on a delivery, a digital delivery service. But at the same time, we're going to post this video on our website, and then you can refer people to it. They'll actually be able to see the video for however long. It'll be there posted for good. And
Absolutely. I really enjoy what you do for the authors. Thank you very much for all you
yeah,
do. So it's
exactly.
really
No,
great.
great to have you on the show, and have a great week.
Thank you. You too. And then make
All right.
it gameful.
Yes, I will. See
Thank you.
you.
Bye.
Bye now.